National Assembly.
Recording in progress.
Portfolio Committee on Cogta, as well as the Select Committee in the National Council of Provinces. We have decided to convene this meeting jointly as two committees of Parliament because the issues are the same, the context is the same, the report is the same. And with that, let me take this opportunity to heartily and warmly welcome our Honorable Minister, Minister Nkadime. I've seen her, she's on the platform. I've also seen Honorable Ngamase, the Deputy Minister of Cogta. I hope that Honorable Pakstow is also part of this meeting. I haven't seen his name, but hopefully he will be part of this important meeting. I've also seen our Auditor-General, Ms. Tsakane Maluleke. I've seen members of the National Assembly and members of the NCOP who are also part of this important meeting. This meeting is very much important, and for me, it's not a ritual meeting where annually the Auditor General presents the consolidated report or she shares with Parliament the consolidated report on the MFMA outcomes, audit outcomes, outcomes of different municipalities across the country. But it must be seen in context, in the context of the challenges that are facing municipalities. And emerging out of this meeting, it calls for members of Parliament to intensify our work, our oversight work, because what is important is that at the end of the day, we want to see improved audit outcomes of municipalities. We want to see municipalities stable, able to perform their constitutional obligations and functions, providing services to the people, ensuring that there is financial management and sustainability, and all those areas, important areas of work that are allocated to local government. This is quite important, and come here this morning to receive this presentation. It broadens and widens our scope of understanding of the magnitude of the issues at hand. And with that, I want to really say you are all welcomed, especially the minister and the ministry as a whole, to be part of this important meeting, to also take us through some of the issues and to really understand the deeper issues that are afflicting our municipalities. And as I said, also the Auditor General and the team to be part of this important meeting of Parliament. This is a joint meeting of the National Assembly Committee and the NCOP Committee. From my side, I'm just going to register members of Parliament from the side of the NCOP, and I'll thereafter allow Honorable Kasa to just mention members of the National Assembly who are present. Later in the course of this meeting, Honorable Kasa will chair the session where we are going to engage, discuss, and ask questions to the Office of the Auditor General. From the side of the National Council of Provinces, it is myself. I pick up Honorable Maleka, Honorable Beya Smith, Honorable Enoch Mtetwa, Honorable Kenimo Tsamai, Honorable Mbali Dlamini, Honorable Shahidi Sheikh. Yes, those are members of the of Parliament that I can account for in this platform at this moment. Just over to you, Honorable Casa, to just quickly register members of Parliament who are present from the side of the National Assembly, because I don't know all of them by name. Over to you.
Thank you, Comrade Chairperson. Honorable members, I will do like you, just read those that I can see. We have Honorable Spies, I can see her. I assume we should have Honorable Dereko, who is the whip of the committee, Honorable Mbumza, Honorable Abanchaba, Honorable Opperman, Honorable, yes, those are the few that I can see, but I think we'll continue as we continue.
Honorable Small is also on, Chair.
Oh, Honorable Teza is showing in his face, Honorable Smala, and I think we'll continue, like I'm saying, Honorable Groenewald. We'll continue as we proceed. If there are any names that have missed out, over to you, Comrade, or Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Casa. Before I allow the AG to make a presentation, can I take this opportunity to invite the Honorable Minister, Honorable Tembinga Dimeng. Maybe she wants to have a word or two before we start with the presentation. Honorable Nkadimeng, over to you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair, and greetings to honorable members this morning. Chair, I only had wanted to record the apology of DM Tau, who is held up with the Department of Water and Sanitation this morning to release the blue and green drop status of our water in municipalities. But as you had already indicated, DM Benz Namash and myself are in attendance, Chair, and would appreciate the presentation from the Auditor-General and also be part of the deliberations. Thank you very much, Chair.
All right, thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Can I invite Ms. We are all yours. This meeting is scheduled to start now until around 1 o'clock. Can I suggest that we give you an hour presentation, or presentation that doesn't exceed an hour, maybe until around 11 or so, if you can, so that we have more time for members to engage with the presentation. Over to you, Mr. Ganewaluleke.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Good morning to you. Good morning to the
Point of order, Chair. Chairperson.
Honorable Samai.
Let us see these people so that we can know each other. When he address, or either just for a minute and move on, because we don't know each other. I mean, we don't know the members of Cogta on the National Assembly. Can't we see each other? Because they were addressed, we didn't see them. I thank you, Chair.
Members, we introduce members, and there will be time when they ask questions, they engage. And can I, in that way, request that at the time that we ask questions, members must switch on their gadgets, their videos, so that we see their faces, please. But for now, I think we must proceed. We will have that opportunity at a later stage. And let us allow the AG to present. There's an important presentation that affect the lives of our people, a serious presentation about the state of the finances of municipalities. Sorry for that, Ms. Maluleke. Over to you. You can proceed.
All right. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Thank you for the opportunity. Good morning to Honorable Kasa. I'd like to greet all of the honorable members of Parliament, the members from the NA as well as from the NCOP, and warm greetings to the Minister of Cogta, Minister Nkadimeng, as well as the Deputy Minister that is represented here, and warm greetings to Team AGSA, my colleagues at the Audit Office. Honorable chairpersons and honorable members, thank you for this opportunity to dialogue with you on the work that we've done for the 2022 local government audits. And I'm aware of the time that you've given me, and I'll do my very best to stick within that, as I too would be very keen to have a dialogue with the honorable members of Parliament. For together, you are part of a critical accountability ecosystem. You monitor and oversee local government much more regularly and much closer than what we do as the Audit Office. So it's useful for us to use this time in a way that is mutually beneficial. The audits that have been completed form the basis of the general report that was tabled last week, which has been published and is freely available to yourselves as members of Parliament, but also as members of the public. It is a report which I'm hoping everybody that's on this call has seen. The work of the Audit Office, which I think my colleague Sia is going to beam up the slides in a moment. I think he said he was struggling to get onto the network. If I can just check if he's coming right. Sia, maybe alert us if you're still struggling to get the slides up. Okay, I'm not hearing from Sia. Kabelo, if you could check on that, please.
Yes,
that would help.
He's struggling to connect. If I could be given the rights to please project.
Okay. Right.
Okay, I'm just putting the slides, sharing the slides now.
Okay, great, thank you. And I think as the slides come up, I'll proceed. Honorable chairpersons and honorable members, the mandate of the Audit Office is to audit the financial reports, the performance reports, and to consider the financial management practices in terms of their compliance with the rule of law. And all of that is stipulated in the Public Audit Act, which is also founded on the constitutional mandate of the office, which sees us operating as an independent assurance provider to Parliament, but to other stakeholders as well. In everything that we do, whether it's in the audits we conduct, whether the insights we share, especially given the now elevated focus that we have on the lived reality of South Africans, whether it's on the material irregularities that we issue based on the new powers that we have, all of that work is about enabling oversight, enabling better transparency and governance in all of the public institutions. And our strategic intent remains that of making a meaningful contribution to strengthening the systems of accountability, transparency, and performance of local government. The accountability ecosystem is something that I'm sure the honorable members have become quite accustomed to, because we have used it as part of our communications tools for the last 18 months or so. And the key message here is that every single public institution operates within an accountability ecosystem where there are different role players with distinct roles, but these roles are complementary. And it is then important for all of us to ensure that we support each other in driving better contribution on mandate by each of the accountability ecosystem partners, because it is when each role player does their part that we will get to the step change that's necessary in the levels of performance, transparency, and accountability of public institutions. It's crucial that we consistently find ways to collaborate and to improve our own individual contribution. Let me get to the audit outcomes, which are on the next slide. These have been widely publicized, so you're well aware of the key message around what the numbers look like, but just a bit of context. The top line tells you the story as it was when we tabled at the end of last year. And at that time, we highlighted that we were plagued by a number of late submissions and even non-submissions of financial statements. As you may recall, the new councils were still settling down at the time that the audits happened for 2021. So when we finished the audits, there were 9 audits outstanding, and when we tabled the report, that is. Since then, we finished those 6 audits out of the 9, and so we still have 3 outstanding, which are municipalities in the Free State, 3 of them in particular, that have yet to submit their financials. But the key message I want to leave with you is that the major contributor to the improvements has been the input by provincial government in driving the improvements in these submissions. The 6 audits that we completed since we tabled the report last year resulted in one disclaimer and 5 qualified, and hence the adjustments to the audit outcomes. For this year, the number is 38 clean audits, 104 unqualified with findings on performance and or compliance matters, 78 qualified, 6 adverse, 15 disclaimers, and 16 outstanding. Let me start with the story around the outstanding. The story underneath that is actually a very good story. If you look at the idea that we've got 16 still outstanding at the time that we completed our audits, I think it's useful for me to refer you to our report, where we've got a full account of where each and every province sat in terms of the late submissions for this particular cycle. What you'll see is that as opposed to last year, in particular, the provinces of the Northwest, Northern Cape, and the Free State, they've made significant gains in the level and the pace of submissions of financial statements. Part of why you have 16 outstanding is that the submissions came together with the backlog of submissions from prior years. So the process of completing those audits took a little bit longer. But I want to give you comfort that the story of the late submissions is coming right. The 15 disclaimers, our major story here is that when we issued the report last year, we made a key input around giving insight on these disclaimers and what is a disclaimer of audit opinion, and looking beyond just the technical term, but to give everybody in the ecosystem of accountability a clear sense of just how undesirable an audit outcome of a disclaimer is. Since then, there have been a number of players in the ecosystem of accountability that have heeded our call. A number of the leaders in local government itself in those institutions have heeded our call. They've driven the necessary improvements such that we've got 9 disclaimers that were disclaimers in the prior year and have improved this year. We also want to recognize the significant input by those in the provincial leadership of the different provinces. The provincial treasuries, the provincial Cogtas, as well as the offices of the Premier. They've now heeded our call to say they've also got to play a much greater role in monitoring, in supporting, and in guiding municipalities so that we can get the type of improvements that are necessary. And what we've seen is that a number of the provincial leaders have heeded that call. And we've seen that come through not just in the submissions, but also in starting to eliminate the disclaimers. The reports with the 6 adverse audit opinions, those are where we say that the financial statements simply cannot be relied upon. So that is one of the most undesirable audit outcomes as well. You've got a number of municipalities looking after 30% of the expenditure budget, those 78 that are sitting in the qualified space. So their financials have got some credibility problem. And they also have findings on performance information and on compliance. And then the unqualified zone, 104 of those. Often we pause to recognize that we've got, if you combine 104 and 38, you rarely have got 55% of municipalities able to publish credible financial statements at the end of the audit process. What we keep highlighting, though, is that there is a set of problems in the unqualified space, which we mustn't be blind to, and they need particular attention. We must start insisting that those that have been sitting in the unqualified zone move towards the green, which is the clean audit opinions. that they deal with the practices that are making it difficult for them to move out of the space of unqualified. It's a very dangerous space because if one is complacent in that space, you could easily regress into the more undesirable set of outcomes. We saw no less than 16 municipalities go backwards from unqualified with findings into adverse and into qualified. The unqualified with findings, they tend to have poor financial management disciplines. They are just able to correct the misstatements or the inaccuracies on their financials during the audit process. They tend to have poor performance management practices, and they also tend to struggle with making sure that they operate within the rule of law in terms of financial and performance management. So that space really is not, it should not be comfortable for any of us. We need to find a way to insist that the posture of those that run local government be one that embraces clean audit as the necessary minimum for how those institutions should be run. The clean audit, just to remind each other, demonstrates that that particular municipality has got good financial management disciplines. When we start the audit, they give us credible financial statements. And that doesn't happen unless there has been attention to financial planning, to financial management and monitoring during the course of the year. It's only when that happens that they're able to submit credible financial statements at the end of the year. Another criteria for clean audit is no findings on performance information. So their service delivery information is credible and can be relied upon for decision-making by other players in the ecosystem of accountability. They also got the key policies, the procedures, and the disciplines to ensure that they operate within the rule of law. So that is the picture in terms of the audit outcomes for this year. In summary, in this year of transition, because these councils would not have had direct oversight over the entire financial year. This financial year covers the period from the 1st of July 2021 up to the end of June 2022. So they would not have had the direct leadership of institutions throughout the entire financial year. It's also a year because of these transitions where there was instability at political level and at administrative level, which would have delayed attention to the critical matters relating to financial and performance management. It's also a year where, by the time we issued our report last year in June, even though provincial and national governments started to operate in a way that was supportive of governance, more supportive of governance, the impact of their actions would not have been felt in totality. So in this year of transition, things have gone backwards on audit outcomes, but we believe that there are a few indicators that, if continued with, would drive some improvement going forward. In the last point I want to make on these audit outcomes, Honourable Chair and Honourable members, is just to highlight that in our report, we spent some time dealing with what is a clean audit. We spent some time dealing with where are the clean audits, and to show that behind the label clean audit is an experience of citizens that is far superior to what people have when their municipality is in the disclaimed, adverse, qualified, and even unqualified space. We visited different municipalities with the lens of saying, let's understand in practical terms what happens at a clean audit municipality. So we're able to tell a story of what happens at Winima Dikizela Mandela that has now got its second year of a clean audit. And how do they manage to translate a good audit outcomes into the lived experience of citizens? And one of the critical practices that they have is about making sure that their budget is linked to their service delivery plans. And when there's a change either way, they make those changes there. Then at least they can make sure that their priorities are known, they're predictable, and their plans are being implemented in a way that's expected. We are able to visit Midval and translate our audit process into what happens on the ground. And what we see is that at Midval, one of the things that they have right is that they drive their service delivery work in a way that translates into budget allocation and attention of functions in both the formal and the informal settlements, such that there is a much more equitable spread of resources and much better attention towards all of their citizens. And as you know, Midvaal is one of those municipalities that has sustained a clean audit for 9 years now. We're able to visit a number of other municipalities across the country, which gives us a sense of what actually happens in those environments, and how that translates to clean governance and what that means for the citizens of that particular municipality. I would encourage the honorable members of these committees to look into that report, because I think it does give a much clearer sense of why it's useful to keep prioritizing clean audit and not to trivialize it as something that is so difficult to attain and so difficult to maintain. It remains the gold standard on how every public institution should operate. On the next slide, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members, we set out the outcomes for the different categories of municipalities. And what you'll see there is that the metros, which should be doing better because they have the budgets as well as the physical location or the geographic location to be able to attract and retain talent so that they can run the municipality more effectively and in accordance with the stated good governance principles. They're not doing as well as what they should. In fact, their audit outcomes don't look so different from the rest of the country. We have 2 clean audits amongst the metros, specifically City of Ekurhuleni as well as City of Cape Town. And then the 1 adverse, that's City of Tshwane, and 2 qualified and 3 unqualified. The 2 qualified are Nelson Mandela Bay as well as Mangaung, and then the rest are in the unqualified zone. And then you'll see also that the secondary cities, which similarly have the budgets and the physical location to be able to attract talent, also don't seem to be doing that well. And if you combine those 2, the metros and those secondary cities, you really have covered the bulk of the country in terms of budget and in terms of coverage of citizens and impact on the lives of citizens. The district municipalities also not doing so well, and they're the ones that should be supporting and leading by example for the local municipalities. And then you've got the local municipalities stated in the balance of the slide. I hope that slide is helpful to you in appreciating where each of the categories actually sit. On the next slide, we set out the provincial stories, and just briefly, and perhaps we'll probably dialogue on this a bit more. The Eastern Cape is one of 2 that has improved significantly together with KZN. They still have some way to go towards putting in place the type of stable internal controls that can drive better performance and to sustain good audit outcomes. The Free State starting to improve a little bit, especially on the submissions, led by the tone of leadership at the provincial government as well as support that's being offered, but also still some way to go. They've got no clean audits and haven't had for a long time now. The Gauteng province also went backwards with a number of regressions over the past year. And so quite some work to be done in getting Gauteng into the right zone of audit outcomes and of delivery and financial health. KZN improved, as I said, was one of the 2 big improvements in the country. And much of it has been about the role that the provincial Cogta and the provincial treasury have played in providing support to the struggling municipalities. They were able to do away with 2 disclaimers through direct support from the province. Cogta sent financial experts to go and help 2 municipalities in particular to get their financials right so that they could get out of the disclaimer zone. So that's important because it tells us that this ownership that we've been advocating for is starting to show up. The Limpopo province stagnated this year. Their ongoing reliance on the use of consultants instead of putting in proper capacity to run municipalities properly throughout the course of the year, to manage finances properly, and to report on them credibly. Those problems still remain. In Mpumalanga, we've seen very little attention at the level of the province to the matters that need to be dealt with in providing support and in monitoring municipalities. And the province itself has remained stagnant on audit outcomes for a considerable period now. The Northern Cape went backwards. They were one of the provinces that was bedeviled by unstable councils, which then struggled to submit financials last year. Some of them regressed in this year. So some work to be done at both the level of each municipality, but also at the provincial level. The Northwest Province, starting to look encouraging in terms of the collaboration between the provincial treasury and the provincial Cogta, working with the Office of the Premier in offering support and in monitoring the work of municipalities towards improvements. They, like the Free State, have not seen a clean audit for a long time. So when we talk to the team AGSA members there, they keep talking about how that would be one of the things that would inspire others within the province to do the same, if we could at least get one clean audit out of the province. Significant financial health challenges there. A number of disclaimers there. It's the province with the highest number of disclaimers. But we are starting to see some improvement being driven from the provincial level. The Western Cape regressed somewhat, also bedeviled by some instability among some of the councils. However, the Western Cape retains its record as the province with the highest number of clean audits, at 21 out of the 38 sitting in the Western Province. And then if you look at the list that we've provided in our report of the clean audits, you'll see that many of them sit in the Western Cape and have sustained their outcomes for many years. Just high level on the matter around financial management. What we've seen is that financial management gets neglected up until the audit process begins. And that's not how an institution should run. It begins with good financial planning. And so on the next slide, you'll see that we talk about the need for proper financial planning, which will then translate into minimizing unauthorized expenditure, minimizing the likelihood that key functions are not funded by the municipality. So we're still seeing far too many unfunded budgets. We're still seeing far too high a figure and a prevalence of unauthorized expenditure. And we're also still seeing in too many instances, there is insufficient budget put aside for infrastructure maintenance, which then translates into infrastructure deterioration as well as service delivery concerns. When poor financial planning then operates in a context where there are inadequate financial controls, you get to a point where financials that are submitted for audit are not credible. Without those daily controls of proper record keeping, of monthly controls, daily controls, of in-year reporting, of monitoring compliance, without those key disciplines, the ability to manage the financial resources on an ongoing basis is quite low. And we see it with the submissions of financial, and we told you this last year, it's the same sort of figures where whilst we can celebrate over 50% of municipalities that publish credible financial statements, when we started the audit, only a quarter of them had credible financial statements. Part of the root causes for that is the skills and capacity problems. Skills in terms of the people who are employed, but also skills in terms of the vacancies that are there, especially at CFO level. We also and accounting officer level. And then that translates into people then using consultants inappropriately with an ongoing reliance. And then another key root cause is the governance and accountability weaknesses with limited impact by internal audit and audit committees. Most of the municipalities have got internal audit and audit committees, but their impact is quite limited, partly because the people that should be taking their audit work seriously, the accounting officer and the CFO working together with the senior managers, they don't do so. And so the impact of their work is quite limited. We're also seeing that there's still some way to go before we get optimal contribution by the coordinating institutions, especially at the provincial and at the national level, Cogta and the treasuries. We've seen that the instability at councils also diminishes the ability of governance to operate properly throughout the year, and also makes it difficult for accountability to happen, because then disciplinary boards don't operate, the impacts don't operate at the right level, and then you're not able to drive the type of consequences that should apply. So the story really is about getting the skills right and the governance processes right. then it'll translate into better financial planning and ultimately better financial management. I'd like to move on to the next slide, which deals with the use of consultants. And just at a high level, we've issued this type of message before. Last year, we reported on 1.36 billion rand that was spent by municipalities, 204 municipalities in using consultants for the purpose of financial reporting. This year, 216 municipalities paid a total of 1.5 billion rand. And then there was other money spent by the provinces to help with financial reporting. So the full consultant bill in terms of financial reporting came to 1.6 billion rand. And much of the reason is about the lack of skills. And what we see is that consultants are doing the work of basic financial management, which really should not be the case. They should be brought on board as experts that complement the capacity that's already in a municipality and that provide input on technical matters, complex matters. What we're seeing is that municipalities use consultants to do basic accounting services, basic preparation of financial statements, basic tax matters such as compiling VAT returns, and asset management responsibilities. These being things that should be key functions in a municipality because they happen every single day, month, quarter, and year. It's important that there be an investment in the capabilities of those municipalities and sustained capability instead of relying on consultants. What we've also found is that even when consultants are brought on board, they're not being used effectively. And in too many instances, there's actually been lack of value for money. And much of it is about the leadership of those municipalities not monitoring the work of consultants properly, not reviewing the work of consultants, appointing consultants much too late, and not managing the scope of the work properly. And so the impact of the work of consultants then is not what it should be. I'd like to then move on to the next slide. Just gives you a sense of where the spend is per province. It also gives you a sense of which categories of audit outcomes are spending on consultants. Just to highlight that the clean audits are the ones that are spending less money on consultants on average. It's the qualified and the unqualified that are spending significant resources on consultants. And as I indicated, the ones with unqualified tend to submit financials that still have problems when we start auditing. And then you'll see that in the adverse category, there's quite significant spend by a total of 6 municipalities. That number is quite distorted because the city of Tshwane is one of the adverse audit opinions, and they've been spending over R1 million a year on consultants to help them deal with their asset management. So that's what contributes to that 176 million rand. But I think more than anything, you'll be able to see the story on what happens at each province. In terms of the context within which local government operates, we're acutely aware that, as we say on the next slide, that the financial health of many municipalities is under significant strain. Much of it as a result of economic viability issues in terms of how that municipality is demarcated. Much of it is also about the economic downturn as well as the lack of affordability for services by consumers. One would have thought that with this set of financial pressures, municipalities would be much more prudent in dealing with the funds that they do have in their hands. And we're not seeing that. We're still seeing that there's too much leakage through fruitless and wasteful expenditure, and far too many instances where money is being lost through non-compliance, especially around procurement. And here we're not talking just about irregular expenditure as a global figure. We're dealing with the financial losses that the Office of the AG has identified through the MI process. And on the next slide, we highlight that when there are these financial pressures, which we see because at least 70 municipalities, 70, have indicated that they've got financial pressures. They themselves highlight that they are concerned that they've got an operational deficit in that their income is less than their costs, that they've got cash flow problems in that they are paying out more than what they're collecting. And they've also got a tendency to pay significant parts of their resources towards salaries and wages, which then crowd out other spend. When you've got that scenario, and then it's compounded by poor discipline around billing, around collections, around expenditure management, it then results in a set of circumstances that makes the lot of municipalities even worse, financial health even worse. What we see is that the ongoing growth in the arrears owed to Eskom, to the water boards, as well as compounded by the water losses, mainly through poor billing and poor distribution infrastructure. Those things also make it difficult for municipalities to get themselves out of these financial health problems and start to operate in the way that's being designed. We're also seeing that there's still continued leakage through the procurement processes in far too many municipalities. We've shared much of this insight over many years, honorable members. We've also been working hard to influence different choices by those that run municipalities. Where we find that there is a lack of attention to the things we've been raising and it's resulting in financial losses, we've then gone ahead and used our powers to issue material irregularities. And I'll talk more about that in the next, in a few minutes. I want to spend just a few minutes dealing with service delivery information, and then I'll get on to the MIs. On the next slide, we highlight the greater set of insights we've been able to glean, having deepened our work on service delivery information. Section 20 of the Public Audit Act provides that the AG must audit financial information, performance information, and compliance. What we've done over the last 2 years, honorable members, is deepen the work that we do on performance information. We believe that if we're able to get better attention to performance information, municipalities will start to function closer to mandate than not. If we sort out the disciplines of planning for performance, monitoring performance, and reporting on performance, we'll start to close the confidence gap between citizens and the municipalities that serve them. But we'll also close the gap for people to misuse funds and direct them where they shouldn't go. We looked at the framework for performance management, starting with the planning and budgeting cycle of government at the national level, as well as province, and then into municipalities as individual entities. Our understanding is that every single municipality has got its own mandate to operate on function to deal with their contribution towards the greater developmental trajectory of the country. We've then asked ourselves the question, what is it? What makes it difficult for them to do so? Where is the gap? And some of our findings on service delivery information relate to poor planning, where the key functions are not provided for properly, where some of the critical functions around providing basic water and sanitation services, electricity and waste management services, local and economic development processes, those things are not provided for in the performance plans of municipalities. They're not budgeted for, and then they don't happen. One of the good practices, as I indicated from Midval, was that they use their public participation process to understand the needs at different parts of their communities. And then they translate that into their IDP and their SDBIP, and they track that there is a budget allocation and attention to servicing all of those communities. When things fall flat at this level, you then end up with this gap between what's expected and what's delivered. We've also seen that the process of compiling the key indicators and targets could improve so that it rings true to a combination of the need as well as the budget availability. We've also seen that some of the targets that are put there are either too low. Sometimes you'll find key service delivery matters being targeted at 0. And then, of course, when the report says 0 performance, it's a credible report, but it highlights that there really has been no attention to providing these key services by the municipality. On the next slide, we set out some of the other problems we've identified. So I've talked about poor planning, and then we saw that ongoing reporting on service delivery is also quite weak. If a municipality is unable to provide us with a credible service delivery report at the end of the year for us to audit. It tells us that during the course of the year, there hasn't been credible information available to the management and to the council to track performance. So that needs to be dealt with. And part of it is discipline at the management level, oversight by council, input in terms of the work of internal audit and audit committees that can then drive the key control improvements that are so critical if we are to get performance information right. So our concern is that this area just keeps being ignored and is to the detriment of citizens through services. And what we see is that service delivery does get hampered when there's poor planning and there's poor monitoring of those services. And then on the next slide, we deal with what some of the impact would be when there is poor planning for key functions and poor monitoring of the delivery against those functions. And it translates into poor infrastructure, deteriorating infrastructure, which is on the next slide. And it translates into water quality problems, into wastewater treatment plants that go unmanaged, into just compromising the lived experience of citizens. And yes, it is true that there are funding shortfalls, but it is also true that much of the funding is not being directed in the way that it should. And if that were to reverse, we would get improvements in this area. And then the next slide, honorable members, gives you a sense of what the outcomes are for service delivery information. This is the second part of our report where we say we've looked at financial information, we've now looked at performance information. And you'll see there that even at the metro level, only 2 municipalities, 2 metros were able to report faithfully on performance information, on what they've done around delivery of services. And you'll see that this area just continues to be ignored, and it is to the detriment of municipalities and institutions, but also to the citizens that are meant to be served by them. The next slide deals with the disclaimers of audit opinion. I'll just highlight that last year we talked about how disclaimers are undesirable. They're associated with significant and repetitive governance challenges and accountability failures, which translate into institutional dysfunction, which is evidenced by service delivery problems, financial health issues, infrastructure deterioration, poor grants management, poor project management, poor HR management, and then an over-reliance on consultants. And as I indicated, some have heeded our call and we've seen the improvements. So this map tells you where the disclaimers were, where the name of the municipality is in green. It tells you that the municipality improved from last year, where it was disclaimed. It is now in a different category. The ones that are still in red are the ones where there hasn't been an improvement in their audit outcomes. So there's still significant work to be done. What we've done here is we also issued material irregularity, because we took the view that when there's a disclaimer of audit opinion, it means that that financial officer and that accounting officer have not dealt with their legislated duties to maintain proper financial records. And not only does it compromise financial management and the audit outcome, but it actually compromises transparency and accountability, which in turn weakens the institution and therefore causes harm to a public sector institution, which is part of the definition of an MI. So we issued those MIs. And the good thing is a number of leaders have responded and others have yet to do so. Some of the responses will take time because disclaimers have happened over many years. And so the ability to get out of a disclaimer zone will take some time for a number of them. And these MIs were consistent with our strategic thrust of saying, over years, we've audited, given insights, we've tried to influence choices by key decision makers and role players in the ecosystem, and now we must use the powers that are in our hands. I realize I've got 10 minutes left, so I'm going to skip next slide and go into the one that deals with compliance. And I've really alluded to it earlier on in saying most municipalities struggle with compliance. essentially, if you look at the 38 that are clean, it means the rest of them have got compliance issues of one kind or another. And much of it relates to the area of procurement, where procurement processes are not run in a way that is designed in law. We've given some sense of the type of findings that we have in this area, but much of it will sound familiar to you. So the major story here is that compliance still needs attention. In the next slide, we deal with the MI processes, which is the powers that were given to the office. It's been 4 years now of implementing this instrument. We've gradually but rapidly increased the number of municipalities where we audit and apply these powers. We started at 9 4 years ago, and now we're at 170 municipalities that are subjected to the MI process. So we've continued to ramp up. We've now identified a total of 268 material irregularities. And where we've been able to identify material financial loss, we've been able to estimate it at a total of 5.19 billion rand. That's not to say that that is the full extent of what might be lost in terms of financial management at municipality. It just tells you that where we've done this work, this is what we have found. And the type of things that lead to loss relate to paying for goods and services that are not received. It relates to unfair and unprocedural procurement processes. It relates to ineffective use of consultants, which I talked about earlier on, the value for money not being received, revenue that's not being billed or recovered, interest and penalties on late or non-payments, as well as assets and investment losses. We've also identified and pursued material irregularities in areas where you would not see a direct financial loss that you can quantify. For example, where we saw that municipalities had these repeat disclaimers, we issued MIs, and I indicated our rationale for doing so earlier on. We did the same thing where they were not submitting financials. We took the view that if you're an accounting officer and your job, as set out in the Municipal Finance Management Act, includes a key responsibility to submit financial statements that are credible and that are supported by proper records. If you fail to submit financial statements, you compromise transparency and you compromise accountability, which harms the institution. So we issued those MIs. And as I indicated, there's been some movement in both the area of disclaimers and of submission. We've also issued MIs in relation to where we identified that there was harm being caused to the public. And that related to landfill sites that were not being managed properly, which were harming the public and causing environmental damage. We also looked at a number of wastewater treatment plants and where they were not being maintained properly, which led to pollution of water resources as well as harm to the public. We issued these MIs because the definition provides that we should and we can. We also issued it because we've understood that the work we do through auditing financial management, financial reports, service delivery information, and compliance issues gives us optimal access to understanding the impact of failures on these three things on the lived experience of citizens. And we've been seized with how do we use what we have in terms of the powers that we've got to drive different choices, different behavior, and a different culture within the public sector. So part of issuing these MIs is really about that. And in a number of instances, there have been some good responsiveness where the wastewater treatment plants are being attended to. But as you would know, the pace of doing so has not been what it should be. The MIs we've issued, and I know it's a question we face often around, but AG, what impact have you had? And many people then say, we want to see people in jail. And then we're at pains to explain that, no, but that's not the role of the AG. The AG doesn't walk around with handcuffs, doesn't walk around with orange overalls, and certainly doesn't walk around with a gun. What we do, though, is drive people from inaction to action. And if they keep failing to act, then we will get to a scenario where we issue a certificate of debt. We have identified one area in one municipality where we may need to issue a certificate of debt. In fact, we've issued that notice. However, the good news is in most instances, accounting officers are moving towards better action when we've identified MRs. The things they're doing are they're recovering financial losses. So as a consequence of people acting on our MRs, 150 million rand has gone back into the coffers of municipalities. 18.85 million rand is in the process of getting back to municipalities. And 310 is also, I beg your pardon, 18 million is an amount of financial losses that are being prevented from taking place. And 310 million rand is in the process of recovery. And that's what we would want to see. We're also seeing that accounting officers are starting to fix the internal controls so that they avoid a recurrence of such a problem. They are driving disciplinary action, which was one of the key problems in the public sector, that accountability was not happening, consequence management was not happening. They're reporting matters to public bodies for investigation and for law enforcement to take its course. They are stopping contracts where we've identified that money is being lost. And as I said, they're dealing with disclaimers and outstanding financial statements. That is the story of the impact so far on what we've been able to drive through the enforcement powers that we have as the Office of the AG. So to wrap, and then the next slide tells you that where we're not getting the type of action we would expect, which is the next one after this one, you'll see that we've issued recommendations, which is the next step. If there's no action, we issue recommendation. If there's still no action, we issue binding remedial action. If that's still ignored, then we go towards either a referral and or a notice of certificate of debt. Some of the referrals we've been issuing to law enforcement are in the process of being dealt with. So my last point in the 2 minutes I have, Honourable Chair and Honourable Members, is that the root causes that underpin the state of local government remain what we've said before: inadequate skills and capacity, governance failures, and a lack of accountability and consequence management. And all of that translates into the call to action that we've issued, which will probably sound familiar to you, starting with the need to professionalize local government. We've seen the professionalization framework that's been approved by the Cabinet. We believe that if it is implemented swiftly and courageously and consistently across the public service, we'll start to get to a scenario where these institutions that are meant to serve the public are operating better. It's important that vacancies be filled with people of competence and that they are monitored in terms of delivery. It's important that the coordinating institutions at provincial and national level also do their part. Critical that the councils be competent, that they be equipped to do their work as designed in law, starting with planning, going to recruitment, going into monitoring and oversight and consequence management through the MPACs and the disciplinary boards. Crucial that the internal audit and audit committees operate better and that their work be driven towards greater impact. We've seen that there is still a need to deal with preventative controls, strengthening the internal controls that support good financial management and good performance management disciplines. What we've seen, and we've shared this with the Honourable Minister of Cogta, is that the MECs in a number of provinces have yet to do the work required by them in terms of monitoring and supporting municipalities. And so that must translate into clear performance plans by their departments and the type of engagements they should be having with the provincial legislatures, so that ultimately the work of the Cogta part of the accountability ecosystem contributes much more meaningfully and sustainably towards improving local government. And then the last thing we would highlight is the need for consequence management using the instruments that are available. We believe, honourable members, that it's crucial that all players in the ecosystem of accountability work together leveraging our different strengths so that we can together build much more resilient, responsive municipalities that are there to deliver quality, sustained services so that the lives of people can improve. And that is the essence of our report, honorable members and honorable chair. Jazz, I think I'm going to stop there, it being 11:01. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, AG. That was really, really informative. Where I sit, I can see that you covered sufficient ground, actually all the pertinent issues that needed to be covered. And you resuscitated quite a number of issues that have been lying down in respect of what is it that municipalities needs to do to improve their financial performance, their general performance, and so on and so forth. I'm now going to hand over to the chair of the Portfolio Committee in the National Assembly to facilitate the discussions on the report. Over to you, Honorable Kaza.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chairperson. Honorable Minister, Deputy Minister, and the Auditor-General. Honorable members, this is your turn to engage on the presentation. I see Honorable Smale, number 1, Honorable Groenewald, Honorable Teza, Honorable Badenhorst, Honorable Spies. I have not given you any numbers. I think we will not quarrel if I mess you up. But let's start with the first member who will allow others to follow. The first name I mentioned. Over to you.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson, and thank you to the Auditor-General, and thank you for a very transparent information session. When we do evaluate the real effects of the municipalities and when we do further evaluate the under expenditure of municipalities, currently we know that local municipalities has got a very slow expenditure rate, and that National Treasury has withheld around about 2.7 billion rand of revenue, of grant revenue in this financial year. And AG, you alluded to linking information to credible outcomes. Should we expect a regress of audit opinions, taking into account that, one, that the majority of our municipalities are not able to spend according to the key projects and functions? Secondly, when we also further evaluate the real state of affairs of municipalities around critical infrastructure, especially when we look at water infrastructure and water treatment plants across all our 9 provinces. And we know that nearly 2/3 of our infrastructure has collapsed, and the majority of that are not functioning. And that is as per our our green drop report that has been tabled to the Department of Water Affairs. And I evaluate the MIs, or the material statements that you have put forward. I'm struggling to bring the two together, that not more findings has been then put forward. Maybe you can clarify me on that outcome. I'm just trying to put the two together in that regard, speaking to the type of audit reports that we are getting. Evaluating further the audit opinions and a presentation done by Salga, and Salga stating that Section 139 interventions are not working. Many of those municipalities remains repeat offenders, some of them up to about 15 times. And in your audit opinions, or within your understanding of why local government is at the state where it is, have you evaluated why Section 139 interventions are not producing the results that they should be? Or have you expressed an opinion around that? And then thirdly, without going into some of the other matters, you made reference that when you looked at one of your slides to say where there were 25 disclaimers that went down to, 26 disclaimers that went down to 15. And you might mention that there was some improvement around the disclaimers because there has been improvement. But I would like to differ on that opinion, because that same slide speaks to an increasement of non-submissions of audit opinions. And in that regard, I would argue that there hasn't been an improvement there might be an improvement of disclaimers not being recorded, but it is at the expense of audit opinions not being submitted. Lastly, on the audit opinions that has not been submitted, especially on a rollover or a continuous period, have you ordered any instruction note to a third body or to Treasury or to somewhere else? I'm just trying to understand. And I know you can't enforce certain actions, but those are some of the things that has done. And lastly, following the MIs that you have reported, have you approached any institution to investigate further or to lay any type of serial complaint of financial misconduct against any person or body? Thank you.
Honorable Runewald.
Thank you, Chairperson. If I start struggling with my internet, I'm just going to put off the video, but let's start. Honorable AG, thank you for the presentation. I've watched while you presented it in Parliament as well, 2 days or what's it, last week. So I appreciate your input in terms of this. The MFMA gives us a lot of warnings within a municipality to say that there's financial troubles within that municipality. For example, your deficits, the first deficit that there is in the financial statements and so on. But Treasury didn't act in time. And we're talking about 10 years back. If you look at your state of local government reports that was issued in 2012 already, it stated that there was financial troubles within a lot of municipalities and the reasons why there is. And one of them is the fact that there was a lack of skill. Now we're already in 2023 and that part hasn't been addressed yet. Now you say that we have MIs and we're moving forward, but isn't there a faster way that we can move to get that skills back within municipalities? Because even what you said in Parliament as well, to say that if there's no skills, they can't be planning, and there's no planning, then they plan to fail. Not your exact words, but more or less what you said. Then in terms of the consultants that's doing key functions within a municipality, and yet that there's no value for money. Isn't it then so that the KPIs within a municipality that's written to your CFO and your municipal manager should allude to especially this, to say that there must be outcomes, and if there's not outcomes, then they must be held responsible in terms of their bonuses and so forth. But when there is, no value for money, isn't that then irregular, and mustn't that then be collected from the municipal manager and the CFO for that expenses that the municipality incurred in terms of the MFMA? So that question. Then, Chair, if you can give me an opportunity to quickly brief, just a brief background in terms of legislation and record management. One of the biggest problems that the AG also views, or can I say, expressed an opinion on, was the fact that there's bad record keeping. In terms of the Act, if you read the Systems Act and the MFMA together, you'll see that your communities are actually just as entitled to this information as the AG is. And I quickly want to go through it. In terms of the Systems Act, it says in Section 80 that when there is supply chain management, then Chapter 3 must apply, or when there's, can I say, in terms of a contract being with any company, Part 3 of Chapter 8 must apply. Then Section 82 says before it enters into a service delivery agreement, the municipality must establish community consultation. So before there's a supply chain management progress, there must be talked to the community. And if you go to Section 83, it says in terms of competitive bidding, municipalities must be accountable to the local community in terms of the progress of that contract or the competitive bidding. In Section 84, it says after negotiating service agreement, and after entered into agreement, the municipality must make copies of the agreement available. So I can't understand why the AG can't find the records, as this record is actually supposed to be at the community. Then it says further on, it says it must make copies of the whole agreement available to the community. In terms of the MFMA, in Section 17, and we've now currently went through a budget process, it says when a budget is tabled in 17.3i, it says particularly of any proposed service delivery agreement, including material amendments to entering service delivery agreement, must be tabled with the budget as documents, as supporting documents. The MFMA tells us that. Then further on the MFMA, it says 162, the regular report of the performance of the contracts must be reported to the municipal council. In 3, it says existing contracts may be amended only if that reasons has been tabled in council and there's a community consultation process. So I truly cannot understand how there's not, can I say, copies of these agreements available or records in terms of the supply chain management contracts. If it's not, then it must be material that the municipal manager and the CFO do not comply with legislation, and then the communities must start talking to our MMs and CFOs to keep them responsible, to say that where's those agreements? We want that. So in terms of the whole ecosystem, the community must play a part and must go to the MM and must go to the councillors and ask, where is these contracts? Because they are entitled to have it. So Chair, let me close there. Thank you so much.
Honorable Keza.
Oh, thank you very much, Chairperson, and thank you very much to the Auditor-General for a very comprehensive and detailed report in terms of the current audit outcomes of municipalities, provinces, and metros. And Chair, the first thing that I picked up on the audit is Free State, Limpopo, and Northwest, where its municipality have not acquired clean audit. Chair, we first, let me start here. We are there at section 121 of the MFMA, and my interest there is section 121 to C. That says that to promote accountability to the local community for the decisions made through the year by the municipality and entity. And it is interesting, it will be interesting, Chair, as to where it is that in this course that the decision making of the municipalities kept up with the reporting of their decision making to their public in regards to the public purse. Chair, first, the Auditor-General speaks to the issues of consequence management and non-compliance of municipalities with certain provision. It's there in section 133 of the MFMA. It says that if an accounting officer of the municipality or municipal entity fails to submit financial statement to the Auditor-General in accordance with section 126(1) or 2, if the mayor fails to table an annual report to the municipality and a municipal entity of the in the council in accordance with section 127, the mayor must promptly table in the council a written explanation setting out the reasons for the failure. The Auditor-General and in the case of any failure to submit financial statement for auditing must promptly inform the Speaker of the Council and the National Treasury and the MEC of local government and MEC for finance in the province of such failure. And then, Chair, this is why I'm reading through such things. There are municipalities, Chair, within this report that are reported to have having a decreased, Chair. Fewer municipalities decreased from 26 to 15. We welcome that, which received disclaimed audit, not a conclusive finding, as a finalization, as the Auditor-General says verbatim, as a finalization of these 16 outstanding audits may uncover additional disclaimers. By what is the time frame for the finalization or the conclusion of the outstanding audits of these 16 audits that are outstanding? Then, Chair, on the 17th of May here in the committee, May 23, SALGA came here to report that they cited that there are municipalities that were worse off after administration due to monitoring inconsistencies that were not in the best interest of the object of local government. In terms of section 152, may I say, of the Constitution. What will it take for these municipalities to improve their audit status and ensure proper management of the available resources? This is to say that apart from the fiscal decentralization that we have cited in the committee, in terms of the given tasks and difficult tasks to municipalities vis-a-vis the available resources. But now we are talking to the available resources, as it were. What will it take for municipalities to really improve on their audit status to ensure management of these resources? Municipalities there, she says that the Auditor-General says that there's 1.61 billion spent on consultants, Chair, for the 2020-2021 audited period. For the current period, Chair, it's 1.61 billion. And then for the 2020-2021 audited period, they spent 136. And you can see the hike there for the same services. And there is no value for money. And she further says there on verbatim, the Auditor-General, which we support very much as a Chapter 9 institution. Too many municipalities were using consultants to do simple tasks such as compile their VAT returns, which is a very basic accounting matter. What is the Auditor General's view in terms of what does this demonstrate about the internal audit team's capacities of municipalities and the skills transfer that the consultants are conferred to transfer in terms of their the municipal internal audits? What is the Auditor General's measurement in terms of his mandate, the measurement of the public confidence, given these audits, public confidence in terms of what government, local government in particular, can deliver, whether government can deliver. For instance, I was talking about the Afrobarometer things, outlining of that issue of public confidence. And then she speaks to the issues pertaining to the local government that has been characterized by dysfunctional municipalities. 66 of them, if not more. I think there were 2 more that were given. What will it take to really deal with these matters of dysfunctionality and financial mismanagement, to realize professionalization, as you have mentioned it, as embedded in the Systems Act, in the crumbling municipal infrastructure, in the administration instabilities of municipalities? Because, for instance, there should be some budget, as you have outrightly put it, some budget that is a contingency or a preemptive measure to say that at some point the municipal infrastructure will crumble, and at some point the population will improve, taking into account the out-migration from rural municipalities to urban municipalities. At some point, this will be overloaded, and municipalities will then need to invest on not only the maintenance, Auditor General, but the expansion of municipalities. So in terms of that, what is your view in terms of that in improving in the living standards of the communities who are most important in these matters? Is the Auditor General enforcing its mandate with respect to the municipalities of Masilonyana and Maluti Apofung, whose annual financial statement are still outstanding, meaning that they have failed to comply with the legislated deadline for the submission of annual financial statements for auditing? The other question that I'm interested in, Chair, is that the number of outstanding audits has increased drastically from 3 in 2021 to 16 in 2021-2022. What accounts for this? The Auditor General, the last one, Chair, would be the Auditor General issues no material irregularities when financial loss is below 1 million. What alternative mechanism is in place to recover funds below 1 million, as these public monies are still substantial? Was the Ngaka Mudiri Mulema, accounting officer who who has been issued a certificate of debt notice present when material irregularity was committed in 2018-2019, considering the generally high turnover in local government. The stability, he speaks to the Eastern Cape chair about the stability of the needed stability in terms of internal control versus the skills and capacity of municipalities. What can you give us the overall view on upskilling? Because you see, the municipalities' over reliance on consultants says that somebody is not looking into these reports of the consultants, meaning that the available CFOs and the available officials do not look into what is entailed in the reports, and then it speaks to the upskilling of the available officials and the attractability of the local government environment for professionalization, and the question of vacancies, particularly as she mentioned at the CFO level. What would it take for local government to lift itself out of this quagmire, as it were? Because I'm fearing that perhaps at one point, given 111 municipalities that were classified as medium risk for deteriorating factor, with only 16 rated stable, I am quite assured that those particular vacancies are needed. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, honorable members. I can see hands are increasing, but we didn't agree on how much time each member can spend. I assumed that will not take much. Can we now call on Honorable Badenhorst?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the opportunity. Good day, colleagues, and thank you to the AG for a very comprehensive and a very clear report. I think one thing that this report highlights to me, and I don't want to dwell on this too long because I've mostly been covered by my previous colleagues, but one of the things that this report highlights to me is the real importance on the ground of clean audits. The clean audit is directly linked to service delivery, and service delivery is what matters to the residents out there in our municipalities. You can't drive on a potholed road. You can't drink unclean water. You have to have sanitation, and those are all linked to the services that take place when there is a clean audit. What is really concerning for me is the fact that so many municipalities out there rely on consultants. The AG said in her presentation that the road to clean audits are proper financial planning. So if consultants are then used to do proper financial planning, because there's a lack of capacity within the municipality, it's really concerning that so many of those municipalities that rely heavily on consultants and spend a lot of ratepayers' money on consultants are still not able to deliver clean audits and therefore do proper service delivery. So that brings me to AG to preventative control. I think it's really problematic if we say that we're trying to do preventative control, but there is no capacity in our municipalities to do that preventative control because of a lack of skills, which is directly linked then to consequence management. So I think it's really important, AG, if you can explain to us what exactly are the instruments that are being used in consequence management? What are we doing with regards to the repeat offenders that just year after year after year fail to get clean audits and have real material irregularities? What are we doing to rectify that problem? Thank you very much for the time. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Honorable Space.
Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, colleagues, and thank you very much to the Auditor-General. First of all, AG, thank you for the report, and it really helps us. And I think the major thing that comes out here is that to help you and to assist the communities to really have a lived and good experience of what really needs to happen in terms of service delivery. Out of this presentation of yours, I think it's important that we need to look at a policy document or some national legislation that makes it mandatory for municipalities to really have a plan or a package that they need to adhere to so that they don't fall into further collapse or totally, the institutional just is destroyed. And I think that's the bottom line of your report, is that we cannot come here again next year and this is the state of things with maybe little improvement, but still we are not, it doesn't look as if we are getting anywhere. But let me get into the issues that I would like to raise, AG. I think first of all, you mentioned that your visits to municipalities, which I think we all welcome, where you went and you looked at what in particular is it that municipalities that are doing well are doing. And I am really a person who was very pro that, because I think it's important, and I've said that to our minister, and I've actually written to our office and to Salga, that we need to learn from best practices. And we need to find a model that can be replicated in municipalities that are at the verge of, on the verge of financial collapse, or that are in distress. And I think we need to emphasize that and really work hard on getting that right, to learn from best practices. What is concerning, AG, is that you are saying that you find in these municipalities that budgets are linked to service delivery plans and that priorities are known. And one would think, and I would think, that would be the absolute basic for every municipality to have from the onset. And I cannot believe that that is not in place. And I would like to understand, what is it that you think should be done or could be done from your side or from other role players within this regard in terms of that? Because to me, the basics is that you need to report on your service delivery budget implementation plans. You need to have a proper service delivery plan that political office bearers have oversight over, but then also that officials are being held accountable to. And to me, it was just really sad to hear that not even the basics are being adhered to. Then, AG, I also need to understand, you make mention on numerous occasions, and we know that from our engagement with municipalities, that there are serious procurement control issues. There are serious procurement management issues. And I want to ask you, in an effort to mitigate problems that we are experiencing in municipalities in terms of procurement, how does your office feel? And I want to mention a few things that I think one needs to look at in terms of procurement problems in supply chain. And I'm going to ask you, what are the possibilities of, for instance, looking at something like regulations that are published in terms of the Municipal Finance Management Act that basically just stipulates the minimum requires that is needed for a financial recovery plan. And I want to ask, is there a possibility for you to give us a plan or a package that is very simplified and practical that these municipalities could actually use in their bid to really improve their outcomes. There's a long list of things that I would like to mention, and I know there's other colleagues, so I don't want to go into that. One of the things that I think one needs to do is that, for instance, I want to understand, AG, when you say that consultants are used for basic things and that the staff that are there are not doing their jobs, how is that monitored, by your office or by the relevant, authorities, that every person employed by the municipality, within the financial department, is actually under supervision, is skilled, is qualified, have job descriptions. I want to understand, in your engagement with municipalities, what is it that these accounting officers are saying, in response to the things that you are informing them of and you are picking up and that your team is observing? Is there mitigating measures that they are putting in place to get these things right? Do you find that there's actually progress in them doing the things that you are mentioning? Then I would also like to find out what is the possibility of having an authority, I don't know whether you call it an inspector general, but per province that you have an office that is actually looking and making sure that municipalities are actually adhering to proper financial practices in terms of supply chain, and that authority can quickly step in and prevent that we have long dragged out processes in terms of irregularities that are taking place, so that there's always, that authority that makes sure things are happening at the pace is happening, but also when things are not happening and it's not happening in a lawful way, it can be picked up easily and it can be dealt with. Then I want to know, lastly, you mentioned that landfill site management and water treatment resources and the management thereof is a problem. I want to know to which extent other departments that the relevant departments that are responsible for these are working with all the relevant role players to actually mitigate these things, because that, to me, is one of the biggest issues, because it harms, as you said, the community, that are affected by these the improper landfill site management and water treatment management or resource management challenges. And I want to understand, does your office get the necessary assistance in terms of collaboration with the relevant departments that are involved in such? I see the chairperson's face. I am going to stop there in respect of other colleagues, but thank you for the opportunity so far.
Honorable members, I think we are moving towards putting some limit, but I know the new hands might not take that kindly. Can I just appeal to your conscience? Honorable Motsamai, it's your turn now.
Thank you, Chairperson. Let me close as others. Chairperson, I recommend that the select committee must conduct a proactive oversight visit to municipalities in Gauteng to look at irregular, fruitless, and wasteful expenditure. The select committee must also look at the plans put in the place by the municipality to deal with an audit outcome. Chairperson, I would like to know, there have been an allegation of procurement fraud in the city of Cape Town. What has the office of the AG done? I want to recommend that the AG must investigate and report to us. Also, I want to recommend that the select committee must conduct a proactive oversight visit to the city of Cape Town. The oversight visit to the city of Cape Town must focus on service delivery procurement, fraud, and invite the relevant stakeholders to attend the oversight meetings. I also want to recommend that AG to provide the select committee with the list of the municipalities that have been issued with MI on a non-compliancy and fraud. I thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is with a Samsung SS. Can I take that hand? The gadget is not named. S98E. Can I allow that honorable member to speak? If not ready, can I ask Honorable Smith?
His Lordship.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Chair, I firstly want to know in terms of when the AG come across contraventions of the law, which is criminal activities in essence, are these criminal activities being reported to the relevant authorities? If not, then I would ask the same question to the department and the minister, because in terms of law, if you know of criminal activities, you've got a responsibility to report such criminal activities. And if not, then you are guilty of a criminal offense. Then the second question is in terms of Section 139 interventions. I want to hear from the AG in terms of their experience of Section 139 interventions, whether there has been significant improvements on such municipalities from where it started off to after such interventions, because we are busy as a select committee looking into Section 139 interventions and the efficiency thereof, and maybe re-looking at the laws and regulations around this to ensure that it has maximum efficiency. Then I want to know when a notice is given to a municipality, for example, spilling sewer into water sources. Again, is this being directed to the Department of Environmental Affairs for intervention and the Green Scorpions? If not, again, it's a criminal offense in terms of the National Environment Act and the National Water Management Act. Then my other question, and this might be rather directed to the minister, is do councillors and senior officials declare their interest, similar to what members of parliament are doing, and are those being made public? If not, then why not? Because we have seen that a lot of councillors and senior officials are doing business with the entity in which they are working in. Then I want to know what prevents the enforcement of the practice used in Midvaal by other municipalities where real public participation are taking place, where the IDP is actually informed of communities and not necessarily decided at the council level, and then a public participation process actually only becomes how can I say, a informing tool rather than a participation tool. I'm going to leave my questions at that. Thank you.
Thank you. We now come to Honorable Utelezi.
Thank you, Chairperson. How does the AG advise municipalities to hold those government institutions accountable for paying that debt to them? Would it be possible to issue and circulate a list detailing the names and the total amounts of debts that are owed by these institutions to the municipalities? My second question, Chair, is considering that in 2021, 2022 alone, municipalities wrote off a debt of 39.63 billion that was not paid to them. Would it be possible for municipalities to shorten their debt collection period, which currently sits at an average of 231 days? And my last one, Chair, considering that awards totaling 250 million rands had been made to employees and councillors at 19 municipalities, and that awards totaling 2.49 billion had been made to other state officials at 134 municipalities. What consequence management measures would the AG recommend these municipalities implement to hold these individuals accountable? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Can I allow the chairperson of the select committee, Honorable Dodov?
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Many questions that I wanted to ask were extensively covered by other members, just few of them. One is that the AG was silent on the issue of threats that has become the feature of what is happening at municipal level, where officials of the AG were threatened. I didn't hear the AG say anything about that. Has this matter subsided? Are they given an opportunity to do their work? If the AG can respond on that question. But I link this up with what is happening in different municipalities, the killing of councillors. We have made an analysis of those who are killed. Most of them serve in these committees that do oversight, especially the MPECs, those that look at issues of irregular expenditure, fruitless expenditure, and so on and so forth. What is the view of the Auditor-General in that respect, in terms of making sure that at the end of the day, those who do oversight and question some of these irregularities that you have highlighted are doing in that respect? The second question, as you said, there are culprits who continuously have the disclaimer opinions, and this happens over time. Some of these municipalities, 5 years, 6 years, and so on and so forth. Has the Auditor-General considered doing the real-time audits in these municipalities? Because in my view, they work, or are these real-time audits applicable in the municipalities? If not, why they are not applied? Because they lessen the damage, they maximize the impact, they have some early warning systems in which if there are transgressions, we can easily pick them up quite earlier than post facto at the end of the financial year. I just want to check whether is it possible for us to do that. Thirdly, I don't know what is it that can be done resolutely to deal with the issues of the Northwest. The Northwest, where I come from, is persistent. And as you indicated in the report, it is only the Northwest and the Free State where you do not have a clean audit. And this is perpetual, it's over time, as you indicated. And some of these municipalities, that is where you get a situation whereby some of them don't either submit their annual financial statements, or if they submit, is the quality thereof is quite poor, and there are systemic problems. Now, just last week, the MEC for Treasury placed about 10 municipalities under what they call Section 139 intervention in terms of the Municipal Finance Management Act, MFMA. And that demonstrates the persistent problems that the province is having. And my difficulty with that is that there is no concomitant action that is taken against the culprits. And the culprits are known, the municipalities are known, the defaulters are known. And I think, in my respective view, up until something very drastic is taken against those perpetrators, this is going to recur annually, is going to be an annual song that we talk about that province. And the AG talked about the ecosystem, the accountability ecosystem, which is quite good. And if we apply it, it will help us in terms of both oversight and support that is given to the municipality. But I see the weakest link. The weakest link is how the province oversee municipalities, how the province strengthens the capacity of municipalities in order for them to do their work, to perform their function, and exercise their rights in terms of what needs to happen. What is it, in your respective view, can be done to attend to this particular issue? I have some questions, but I think for now, Honorable Chair, it's okay. It suffices. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Let me first, before we allow the AG to respond, to indicate proposals that I've received in terms of managing time. So a suggestion now is that if you have any follow-ups, it would not be more than 2 minutes. So think about it as we allow the AG to respond. Auditor-General, over to you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Kasa and the honorable members. There are a number of key questions that have been posed to me, and I'm going to do my best to ensure that I respond to each and every one of the honorable members that has raised them. I'd like to just start off by reiterating our message on the accountability ecosystem. I think it comes up in a number of the different questions. When we talk about this accountability ecosystem, the primary role for running that institution resides in the head of administration, being the municipal manager, who's supported by the CFO and the other senior managers, who together are appointed by council. They then work with internal audit and audit committees that are there to support the administration in driving the type of oversight, monitoring, ongoing improvements that are necessary. And then if you look within that institution as well, there are very clear designated responsibilities that sit in the hands of council. And some of the responsibilities are then dealt with on behalf of council by their disciplinary board and or their own impact. And there are other committees as well. I raise this because I think it's important for us to look at that entire ecosystem within the municipality to understand where weaknesses might prevail. They are the people who are appointed and elected to lead the municipality. They have the authority and the responsibility to act as custodians of the institution, as stewards over the institution and its resources. They're the people who should be held accountable primarily for making sure that institution delivers on its mandate. And then if you look on the other side of our accountability ecosystem, you'll see that we've highlighted the role of the provincial departments, specifically Cogta, the Treasury, and the Office of the Premier. We've highlighted also the role of the provincial legislature because they hold the Premier's office, the head of department in Cogta, the head of department in Treasury, accountable for what it is they're supposed to do. The legislature, in fact, approves the annual performance plan of the department and the budget, and they regularly engage with them on their performance against it. And then if you look at the national level, there are specific duties that sit with the Minister of Cogta, the Minister of Finance, as well as the oversight responsibilities that sit with the respective portfolio committees that oversee them. And then if you look at the law, I mean, so I'll give you an example around the matter of performance information, because I think it comes up when we deal with the service delivery issues. The accounting officer and the council will run their public participation process. They'll make sure that they take those inputs together. They'll compile their IDP, and then every year they'll also compile their SDB. Those documents go to the MEC Cogta to make sure that that department reviews them. And if you look at Section 31 and Section 32 of the Municipal Systems Act, the responsibilities are very clear. So if there's a problem around the quality of performance planning, we've got to look at what happens within the institution as well as what happens at Cogta. And also the provincial legislature should be driving an oversight set of activities that complement and support the improvement of performance information, performance planning, performance monitoring. If you look at Section 47 of the MFMA, very clear on the duty of the minister at Cogta to submit to Parliament a set of reports at least once a year that deals with how municipalities are responding to the findings of the Auditor-General. And then the question would be, to what extent is the legislature then attending to those specific responsibilities in a way that's supportive of the entire ecosystem? In our report on MFMA last year, honorable members, we spent a great deal of time even testing ourselves as Team AGSA on what are the rules, what does the law provide for, and what are the things we can start influencing so that every single part of this ecosystem operates as designed. It is only if that happens, when that happens, that we'll start to see the improvements that are necessary. I want to then also highlight the role of AGSA, especially given the past, because the question has come out a few times. The MI process is there as a complementary mechanism to support accountability and consequence management in the public sector. The primary responsibility for driving discipline, for driving consequence management sits with the accounting officer and with council. So if an issue comes up, whether through internal audit or AGSA's audit, the first person who must deal with it is the accounting officer. And the first people that must oversee that is happening are the members of council operating through the impact. By the time the AG comes a year later to say, no, but the accounting officer has not acted on our audit findings, it's quite late in the day. And those weaknesses have prevailed and possibly worsened over the time. That's why our message says, let's get everybody in the ecosystem operating in a way that's complementary. When we issue an MI, we're basically saying to the accounting officer, of all these things we've given you as audit findings, they're important, but this one is urgent. Deal with it quickly, because that's the one where you're losing money. That's the one where your institution is being harmed. That's the one where the members of the public are being harmed. Act quickly to sort this out. And so then we give them space to actually implement the corrective action because they remain primarily responsible and accountable. And that's why as the Office of the AG, we can't step in and do what they're supposed to do. The law says that accounting officer must do the following. They must investigate the issue at hand. They must make sure that if it's a matter of criminality, they report it to law enforcement. They must stem whatever losses may be incurred so that they protect public resources. They must collect monies that may have been unduly paid out so that, again, they protect and recover funds that are being lost. They are the ones who must drive discipline of the staff under their supervision because they're the head of administration. They're the ones that must also figure out whether or not there are internal controls that have been weakened and how do we correct them. And that's why as the Office of the AG, we issue the MI and then we say to the accounting officer, tell us what it is you're going to do. Then if we believe that that proposed set of action is adequate and appropriate, then we allow them the space to roll it up because they're the ones that are responsible. It's only if their response is inappropriate or inadequate that will then escalate to the next level of our powers, which is to issue the recommendation and ultimately remedial action or even a referral. But in the first instance, we must give that accounting officer the opportunity to act because that's their job. And the person that must then make sure they act appropriately is counsel, because they are there on an ongoing basis. By the time the AGSA issues binding remedial action, what it signals to all of us is that the accountability ecosystem within that institution is failing. And we should be looking at each of the role players to understand what it is they're failing to do. And such that by the time we issue a notification that we want to issue a certificate of debt, we must appreciate that that ecosystem is failing. So I just want to put that on the table so that as I respond to the questions, I can keep coming back to that. Honorable Smala, you asked the question about the grants that are being withheld by the National Treasury and whether or not we should expect a deterioration in audit outcomes going forward. Our sense is that unless municipalities, the provincial government, and the national government act in accordance with their given mandates to correct the wrongs, to stem the leakage, we must anticipate that the lot of local government won't improve. It's going to take decisive action on the part of all of those role players in the ecosystem to improve the state of local government. I can't preempt audit outcomes. We have to audit and then come to those findings and reports and assessments. But what we've seen over many, many years of tracking this sphere of government, unless the root causes to the weaknesses we've been raising, the skills and capacity, the governance failures, the lack of accountability and consequence management, unless there are decisive actions to push back on that, we can anticipate that sphere of government won't improve. You also asked, Honorable Smala, about the MIs and how it relates to the audit reports that you receive. What you will see is that in a short space of time, we will submit to SCOED, which is the Standing Committee on the AG, which is the committee to which I account or through which I account to Parliament. We will submit a report on all of the MIs that we've issued in the local government sphere. We did so last year following the MFMA reports. We will do so again now. I would encourage you to then look out for that report when it is available. It'll state out every single MI, which municipality, what the status of the matter is, and what the nature of it is. So I think that'll be the type of information that you're looking for. In terms of the Section 139 interventions and why they're not working, last year, part of our assessments were that too often these interventions are implemented late when there's so much damage already. And that's why you've seen us drive a message about the accountability ecosystem role players doing their part to identify problems and to put in support so that they stem the problems before they become too severe. What we are aware of is that each of these interventions, whether it's support, as what we're seeing some of the provincial governments starting to do, whether it is even the use of consultants, as we're seeing, none of these interventions will have sustained positive impact if we don't attend to rebuilding the institutions of local government. They'll always be short-term, they'll always be costly, and they won't drive the type of impact we see. Attention must be towards rebuilding these institutions so that they are run by people who have the type of competence, who have the ethical posture, who have the discipline to do what they are required to do in law. Unless we put stability at the administrative level and competence there as well, we're not going to be able to turn matters around. So that's going to be the thing that needs urgent attention, because these interventions, as necessary as what they might be, their impact will always be short-lived. In terms of the disclaimers, yes, we have had 9 improvements. And yes, it is true that some of the outstanding audits, the ones that were not completed by the time we finished our analysis as an audit office, some of them would have been disclaimer audit opinions. We've had to finish those audits and we'll report on them in due course. But it doesn't take away from the fact that at least 9 disclaimers are no longer, former disclaimers are no longer disclaimers. And that's important for us to take note of, because it says that it is possible to move out of a disclaimer zone if there is decisive leadership at the level of the administration of the institution, the political level of the institution, as well as at the level of the provincial leadership. And so the examples I've given are around support that we've seen having a direct impact on improving the number of disclaimers. So when we get to the end of it, in terms of finishing the audits that were outstanding, we might not be sitting at 15, but we'll certainly not be sitting at 26. In terms of the referrals, yes, we have referred matters through our MIs to the SIU, to the Hawks, and also we're in the process of referring other matters to other government departments, especially on matters relating to the environmental harm related especially to the water resources. And that's consistent with us having understood what the design of the ecosystem is, and having consulted with those relevant departments around their role and seeing how the work we do at local government can support them in executing on their functions. Honorable Groenewald, the matter around value for money is still the primary responsibility of that accounting officer. And if there's a contract entered into where there's leakage, and whether it's the AG or the internal auditors that raise the matter, the accounting officer is required to act on it, as I've indicated. When it's bad record keeping, the accounting officer is primarily responsible for dealing with that, for making sure that there are records. And when there are no records and that accounting officer is not doing their work, then the council must hold him or her accountable. And if they're failing to do so, then the matter must now escalate to the provincial government as well, up to the legislature. Because you're quite right, the law is very clear on the need for record keeping, on the need for consultation, on the need for transparency. Honorable Ceza, you raised a number of issues. I'll highlight things that I've not spoken about already. In terms of the submissions, yes, we did notify all of the key parties where the municipalities failed to submit financials. So we did, as AGSA, comply with our legislated duties to notify players in the accountability ecosystem. But we also used our powers to put in MIs and a combination of notifying key players who then took action, but also our MIs has led to the improvement on these submissions. And yes, there are still 3 outstanding in the Free State, and we'll continue to work with the provincial government there in terms of implementing what they need to do to get those submissions right. The maintenance and expansion of municipalities, in particular the infrastructure aspect. Our sense is that there is a dearth of planning for performance and making sure that maintenance is a key feature of the functional planning at local government level, as well as the budget allocation. Making sure that there's a maintenance plan that is rolled out and monitored. And that is the duty of the people who are running the institution. So those things are not there. And we've been raising this for a number of years. The other dynamic is that grants are given to local governments to put in new infrastructure. In too many instances, those projects are not implemented appropriately. And as a result, you either don't get them implemented, so the amount of money goes back. Sometimes they are given, the contracts are given to a contractor that doesn't deliver because they're also not monitored. They're also, the project itself is not proactively kept track of, and the quality issues are not dealt with. So then even if something is on the ground, the poor quality then results in inefficiency of spend. So it's a combination of issues. It's about discipline on maintenance, but also the discipline rollout of projects when they are planned for. I've indicated how we are enforcing our mandate, and you're talking about the alternative mechanism for recovering money beyond R1 million. Now, as AGSA, we audit all municipalities plus their municipal entities. We audit everyone else, so 1,000 audits. We only get to auditees properly and for a long period of time over once a year, really. We spend time with them in different cycles, but we're not there every day. We don't run the institution. The primary responsibility for avoiding losses, for recovering losses when they are discovered, that must sit with the accounting officer. And if he or she is failing to do that, the council must hold him or her accountable. And yes, you're right. The turnover at that key level of accounting officer does detract from our ability to strengthen institutions, to drive performance, and to improve accountability and resource protection. Honourable Badenhorst, the matter on clean audits, I couldn't agree with you more. What we see about clean audits is that, yes, they may not be perfect. They don't operate with perfection all the time, but there is a particular level of responsiveness, which is what we should see everywhere. When these clean audits are there, we've gone to some of them and there are projects that are not going so well. When we raise that matter, they respond to it quickly. It then doesn't end up as a significant reporting item for audit purposes. It's not hidden, but it is dealt with properly, and that's what you need. We're not looking for perfection. It's all about a type of responsiveness that we should all expect in terms of how public institutions are run. I'm struggling with a bit of load shedding. I hope I remain audible for the moment. The instruments for consequence management, if you look at the ecosystem of accountability, it cannot be just the AGSA that's relied upon to drive consequence management. We must look at all the other role players in the ecosystem, the accounting officers, the disciplinary boards, the impacts of council. We've got to look at the role of the province. We've got to look at the role of law enforcement. We've got to look at the role of other players in the ecosystem. Absolutely crucial. I want to just then deal with the matter that Honourable Spees you raised about the procurement management weaknesses. There are already financial recovery plans that are prepared by some of the provincial treasuries to support municipalities, and in some instances, the national treasury themselves gets involved. So there is a set of expertise that's available and a set of experiences that people can learn from as we drive improvements in financial recovery and financial planning at municipalities. The matter about consultants, what we are seeing is that there are people employed in key functions in financial management, CFOs, financial managers, and other officials, but they're not being monitored around disciplined attention to the basics during the course of the year. And then there's this tendency to look for consultants to deal with matters at the end of the year. Those basic disciplines, get your VAT return done on time, get your records in place, make sure that as CFO, you are reviewing the accounts on a regular basis, you're ensuring that the reconciliations are being done. Those basic disciplines cannot be replaced by relying on consultants at the end of the year. And so what we see about those, many of the auditees in the yellow zone, is that there's a weakness in that discipline of financial management. And it's all about making sure that the leadership of the municipality attends to employing people who have the right skills, affording them the opportunity to do their work, driving the type of environment where there is stability, appointing people and insisting that they perform and holding them accountable when they fail to do that. On the landfill sites and the wastewater treatment plants, I've indicated that we're looking and working on referrals to other national departments, such as the Department of Water and Sanitation. And it's all about looking at the ecosystem more broadly. Honorable Muzamai, the list of MIs will be available in the report I've spoken about, which report will be tabled at SCOAG as the law requires that I do. The report that we've tabled last week on local government sets out a provincial summary for each of the provinces. So if you look at the back of the report, you'll see that each of the provinces has a full story, which gives you a very detailed account of our observations and insights on what happens in that province. And so if you're looking for insight, I would ask that the honorable members look at that section. I think it'll give you some very good insight on what it is that we've identified as the public sector auditors responsible for auditing local government. Honorable Bear Smith, I think I've indicated the matters around the Section 139 interventions and the MIs. Honorable Buthelezi, the procurement matters, the primary responsibility would sit still with the accounting officer and the council. They've got to make sure that they have the type of policies, the procedures, and the discipline. And then they must make sure that they have internal audit and audit committees to support them in monitoring compliance with these issues. And then when there is non-compliance, which the AG reports on, it's in the audit report, which the council must then track in terms of how it's being dealt with, which the MEC Cogta should also track and report on in the provincial legislature on how that's being dealt with. And I'm now getting towards the last bit of my responses. Honorable Dodovu, you raised the matter about the threats to the staff in the audit office. We are starting to see some instances where threats are picking up again. You may recall that through the COVID era, things went quiet. However, we're starting to see threats and intimidation rear their head. We believe that every single player in the accountability ecosystem should be gravely concerned when the staff of the AGSA is threatened purely for doing their work. Our constitutional mandate provides that we audit and report faithfully without fear, favor, or prejudice on what we have found. And it is all in service of supporting our democracy. We believe, therefore, that everyone who sees or hears instances where our teams are being threatened or intimidated needs to do their part to push back against that. For impacts to be effective, our view is that they need stability, they need ongoing training. And you also need to make sure that it's people who would benefit from that ongoing training. The real-time audits that you suggest on non-submissions, you know, as tempting as it is for us to say, yes, we'll do it, because as Team HSA, we tend to want to help where we can. I'm going to respond by saying, I don't think that's appropriate, because all we will be doing is stepping in to fill a gross governance failure. Because long before there's a problem of non-submission, there's someone who's hiring an accounting officer, who's allowing that accounting officer to get away with not complying with the law. There's a council that's neglecting its duty. There's an MEC Cogta and an MEC Finance that are not doing what they're supposed to do. There's a legislature that's not doing what they're supposed to do. There's internal audit and audit committees that are not doing what they're supposed to do. By the time the AGSA now has to go and do real-time audits on municipalities right across the country, not only is it going to be impossible because resources are scarce, but I actually think it would be wholly inappropriate. because we would be compensating for wholesale governance failures in a way that might even detract us from the constitutional function we should be operating in. Yes, where there are special circumstances, such as a disaster, a supreme audit institution can and should be called upon to support transparency and accountability. However, we should not normalize getting the AGSA to fill wholesale governance failures, which really should be dealt with by the people that are appointed and elected to deal with. The accountability ecosystem demands that all of us play our roles. As Team AGSA, and I hope you can see this, we have been pushing ourselves to do more and more to keep improving the type of work, the type of insight, the type of influence we're able to bring to bear. We've also adopted the new powers we've been given and are using them to good effect to drive the type of audit impact that we believe we can deliver. However, as good as the AGSA might be, we can't do everything and we can't do it alone. It's crucial, honorable members, that we find every opportunity to support one another to do the work that we should do as mandated by the law as key partners in the accountability ecosystem. And with that, I want to thank you for your kind attention. I want to thank you for the time that you've taken to read our report and to engage in this way. I've taken some interest in what it is you've been raising, and we'll be thinking seriously about that in terms of how we can better support you as the honorable members charged with oversight responsibilities. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much. I think it has been...
Chairperson.
No. I'm coming to you. I'm just making a comment. I'm saying your response, Auditor-General, it helps all of us to realize what roles should we play in this accountability ecosystem. And I think all of us, it says, where should we improve in what we are supposed to do in terms of the law? Can I get follow-ups now? I see the first hand is Honorable Motsama.
Thank you, Chairperson. Okay.
Yes, Honorable Motsama.
I think I was using English, maybe. My question was not answered. Mo tulong ena ya Kapa. Menyenyetsi ya bokgone go Kapa. Ke ne ke batla gore nka fetola nka arabiwa sentle mo yone eo. Le gore ena ka ba ka bua gore molaodi mogolo ona a etsa jwang ka manyenyetsi ene ya bokgone. I want to recommend that the AG must investigate and report to us. Margarata pele na hanga fetulwa mo ya bokgone ba mo Kapa gore go na go etsagala eng ka bokgone bo. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Peza.
No, thank you very much, and thank you for the responses of the AG. However, Chair, there is really a question pertaining to, because she spoke earlier on about the district municipalities audit having plummeted and should be the ones that, as a senior or secondary municipalities, leading by example. Given the fact that municipalities, district municipality, for instance, of Nkungundlovu, which came here to the committee, was questioned in council about the amount of staff, the amount of the conditional, the financial constraints were questioned in terms of them using the conditional grants to pay their staffs. Would the Auditor-General explicate and assist as to the committee how does this relate to the municipality, district municipalities and other municipalities that are using conditional grants for the purposes of paying staff? But the question of evaluation of the bloated organograms in municipalities wherein you are not able to pay the staff because of the nature of the bloated organograms. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Honorable Smale.
Chairperson, I will be quick. There's just two follow issues. AG, your reference to cases that you put forward to the SIU and Hawks and other relevant departments, is there a possibility that we can access such a report? Is there a possibility that you can produce such a report to this committee? Secondly, the allegations of intimidation or threats against your officials at various levels of government departments, how do you take it forward? And do you also see the same thing happening with possible internal audit committees? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, honorable members. AG, that would be, but before I allow you to respond, you already had indicated some closing remarks. This would be your last closing remarks now. But before that, I know there are members who asked questions from the minister and whoever else who might not be part of the AG's team. I would suggest that because our engagement was with the AG, I will allow the minister to close at the end, but let's allow the AG to respond to the questions, the supplementary questions.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. The Honorable Mutsamai, I was referring to page 133 of our report when I said that the matters on the provincial reports, on the provincial summaries are there. But specifically, I get the sense that you're asking about two things. And if I'm wrong, please do correct me. I understand that you're asking about service delivery in the Western Cape, especially at City of Cape Town, because that often comes up as a question around the clean audit. And I also get the sense that you're asking about the matter relating to human settlements and the much publicized issues on allegations against the MMC that was then suspended. On the matter relating to human settlements, the issue came up after the audit cycle. The beauty about the AGSA is that we are there every single year, so we will be able to pick up on it in the forthcoming period. But what we are clear about is that we've been briefed on what it is and how it's being dealt with. And so the people primarily responsible for dealing with it, which is a combination of the leaders in administration and in the political domain, they are dealing with it. Ours is to then follow up. As we understand it, the matter has been dealt with, is being dealt with, and I've read news reports or pronouncements made by the Mayor of Cape Town on how the matter is being dealt with. And I'm assuming that's the issue that you're raising. The second one on performance information, because quite often the question becomes, why does service delivery not translate into the more informal areas of Cape Town vis-a-vis others? And as we state in page 134 of our report, we highlight where the weakness is. It's really, and is being attended to. So I think that would be how I would respond to it. That yes, we've looked into the matters around service delivery because that's been a concern of ours around all of the clean audits to say, what are the things that make it difficult for auditees or municipalities that have got clean audits and to deal with service delivery properly. And so the examples I'm able to share with you on good practices, say at Midva and at Winima Dikizela Mandela, and perhaps even at Okahlamba, are things that we've been able to see in real time around how they do things. And they're also, they've given us an opportunity to provide the type of insight and recommendations within the City of Cape Town which are now being dealt with. I hope ke go arabile ga Ntate Motsamai. Honorable Cesar, Honorable Cesar, the conditional grants being used to pay staff. So in our report, we highlight that the municipalities that are not well managed, especially around financial planning and financial controls, they're the ones where you're going to see that conditional grants are then used for purposes that are inconsistent with what was intended. And we've given some insight on where those instances are. So we do report on it, and we also highlight, and I think I indicated it in my remark, that that's where you're seeing a dominance of money being spent on salaries and wages, which then starts to crowd out funding for service delivery. For us, that's a financial planning problem, and that's a financial management discipline issue. Yes, some of it is about commercial viability, but there are particular weaknesses in how the funds that are available are being used, and those need attention. Honorable Smala, the report on material irregularities is a very detailed report, which we're working on now, which will then table in Parliament through SCOAG in a little while. However, the report from last year is already available in that we tabled a full report on our material irregularities, which states what matters we've referred to whom. The ones that we are still dealing with now, the ones such as the ones to the Department of Water and Sanitation, that'll find expression in the next iteration of our report, which once I have tabled it at SCOAG becomes available to each of you as the honorable members of Parliament. I hope that's helpful. Thank you very much. And I've already given my opening remarks, and I've already thanked the honorable chairs and the honorable members for the opportunity to dialogue in this way. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, AG. We will now, because we are almost closing, there's a session at 2 o'clock. Allow the minister to make closing remarks. You can as well touch on whatever issue that might have been raised. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson and honorable members. And let me appreciate the presentation. As the AG had indicated, she had already met the department and subsequently met cabinet as well and echoed the same report. And quite a lot of deliberations have been held between ourselves and their office. There were a few issues which were raised by honorable members, which were not necessary, which were directed to the department. For example, our councillors mandated to declare business interest. Yes, they are. Of course, we do experience some challenges in some instances where the declarations are received late by MECs or follow-ups are not being made, but we do try to close on the gap, and when there are issues that are being raised, we follow through them. We follow them up. The AG also, as part of their functions, do audit such, including the declarations by staff, and quite a number of, in fact, in the past 3 year cycle, the situation was very much undesirable. There have been quite a bit of improvement, even with staff not being allowed to do business in municipalities. But the AG continuously extrapolates such information and corrective measures are done. There were issues raised about Section 139, Chair. I wouldn't want to really, it's a session on its own, but suffice to say that we are revisiting the legislation because yes, it's true, an observation which suggests that they are not necessarily fully meaningful and giving the impact of intervention and correction where you'd want it at the municipal level. Currently, our councils are both the executor and a monitor, and we have to look into the reviewing of their powers. In some instances, we are literally stonewalled by provinces and municipalities themselves who refuse an intervention, in some instances who lock out even members of the national teams and provincial teams. So there's quite a lot. You may be aware that even Section 139, as per the legislation now, must firstly be initiated by the MEC. In some instances, our report at National Cogta indicate a need, and the province says we don't see a need yet. And there's quite a lot of what needs to be harmonized to make sure that they are. I can see the follow-up there. Yes, they are not necessarily mandatory, honorable member, that they be declared or made public, the declaration. I'm sure we may want to look into the law with regards to that, but they are compulsory. Councillors are supposed to do it, but they're not necessarily publicized. It's only the MFMA which makes it mandatory for councils to publicize tenders that have been awarded. It's usually attached to council reports, which are open reports, into Section 52's quota reports into council, where council must, where administration must put council and the community in attendance into confidence who was given what tender for what value and for what a period. That's the only thing which is also found in the website and the open platforms for municipalities. With regard to capacity development, really, particularly aligned to the audit and audit plans, remedial plans, we have a program with SALGA which adopts. SALGA takes about 25 and the department takes about 25 municipalities and assist them. But what the AG says is, what is critical is to find people present in that particular municipality, having been followed through in a competence framework to ensure that we appoint correct people, because you cannot capacitate for the sake of doing it. It needs to be information or lessons that are transferred to people who qualifies, and there's quite a lot of corrective measures that we're doing. But I must indicate that we've seen progress in municipalities that really strengthen themselves and allow them to grow. And we have also looked into legislative review. I mean, for example, the role of MPEX now, since the past November 2021, where the president assented to the new systems bill. MPEX's role now is very clear. We're working on the intergovernmental framework to ensure that even in assisting municipalities through DDM, to ensure that various aspects like waste collection, the AG spoke about refuse, DWS, housing and whatever. We plan together, the Deputy President is coordinating that IMC of Cogta with all sister departments, which is rolling out to our rapid assessment team into about 59 municipalities, and 34 of those are perennial non-spenders. Chair, I think I will end there, and that will assist in grant management. So now AG has indicated that most of our grants only allow for the layout of infrastructure. But Chair, we've reviewed our MIC allocation now. It allows for maintenance as well, which means municipalities can plan, roll out infrastructure and still use MIC that is allocated for them to be able to maintain that infrastructure as coming with the fiscal review at local government. Thank you, Chair. I will end there. We'll still have other days for discussions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Honorable members, I know we have got that right to engage with the minister, with any other person who can make a contribution in improving our work. Today it was for the Auditor-General. We're engaging here. Thank you very much to the Auditor-General in particular. With this information that is before us, I'm sure both those who are in the executive, starting with the council, province, and national, they would have noted some of the areas that needs focus in terms of how we can improve, including those oversight bodies, starting with the council itself, the province, the provincial legislature, as well as the two the select committee and the portfolio committee. So I'd like to say we have learned something. I'm sure it is going to help us to improve. Honorable Dodovo, would you want to make some closing remark? Let me hand over to you.
No, not at all, Chair. I think you did very, very well. And thank you for that. I'm okay. I'm okay. Thank you very much.
Well, the meeting is then adjourned. Thank you very much to all of us members and everybody else who might have been part of the meeting. The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.